The consolidated tactical group Adam strikes at the concentration of the enemy manpower. It is one of those who hold back the advance of the Russians in the Bakhmut direction of the Donetsk region. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Russian army does not take into account its losses in manpower.
The enemy continues to suffer losses. On March 11th, about 30 bodies of Russian invaders were delivered to the local morgue in Enerhodar. At the same time, the Russian military leadership is taking measures to restore losses in manpower. Thus, on March the 10th, new troops from the Yamalo-Nenetsk autonomous district in Russia arrived in Yalta, Donetsk region, Ukraine. It is reported that enemy personnel is unmotivated and unwilling to participate in combat. From the operational summary of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook.
For more than a year of the war against Ukraine, the Russian army lost almost 160,000 troops, according to the British Ministry of Defense. Among those who were killed trying to seize the territory of Ukraine are military personnel from depressive regions of Russia, and the most minimal losses were suffered by Moscow and St. Petersburg regions.
In many of the eastern regions, deaths are likely running as a percentage of population at a rate 30+ times higher than in Moscow. In places, ethnic minorities take the bigger hit. In Astrakhan, some 75% of casualties come from the minority Kazakh and Tatar populations. From a UK Department of Defense review on Twitter.
Only in the last week from March the 6th to March the 12th, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed almost 6,000 Russian soldiers, as well as 338 units of weapons and military equipment. Out of these are 52 tanks, 77 armored vehicles, 61 artillery systems, 11 air defense complexes. In addition, Ukrainian defenders shot down 2 enemy planes, 34 cruise missiles and 37 drones. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the enemy continues unsuccessful attempts to advance in the Donetsk, Luhansk and Zaporizhia regions. Leonid Hoda, hero of Ukraine, commander of the 1st Separate Tank Siversk Brigade, tells how the attempts of the Russian army to advance in the south of the Donetsk region are being held back. In his opinion, now the enemy has an advantage in the amount of military equipment. The tanks provided by Ukraine's allies will help change the situation.
The concept and tactics of using tanks will be significantly changed, as for example, a different aiming range, other possibilities, and a more informative digital field. Well, if we use this equipment correctly, we can destroy the enemy in advance when it comes to this distance from which it can work.
The commander of the 1st Separate Tank Siversk Brigade believes that the war should end with the complete surrender of Russia.
We need to end the war on our terms, so that Russia capitulates. Whether it will be in the Kremlin or in the Urals, they must capitulate, and they must admit that they were wrong when they invaded Ukraine. And of course, then they will pay reparations. You cannot compensate with money for the suffering, the pain that cost Ukraine, the killed Ukrainians. How many children, families, people were killed. It is awful to imagine. This, of course, cannot be compensated with money. It will not be forgotten and will remain. I think it will be stamped in the mind of each Ukrainian.
Reported by Dana Kolesnik, Natalia Bilokudrya, Evgeny Karmazin, UATV News.